Greetings, YouTube. So there has been a study in the UK about the general population's understanding of the Holocaust. And apparently half of Britons didn't know that 6 million Jewish people were murdered by the Nazis. And some thought it was 2 million. Um, and that 67% of British folks thought that the government had allowed the Jewish uh, folks trying to flee Germany into the country. And when in actuality, the UK and the US and many other countries shut their door to the Jewish people because the Nazis initially tried to just get rid of them. Between 1938 and 1939, they wanted to just push them out of their territory. And the rest of the world said, no, we don't want them. And so the Nazis decided, well, we found a final solution to that problem. Of course, there was no problem. They're just racists. Um, And that's disconcerting, and I would hate to see the same study being done in America. If anybody knows of a such study that was done in the U.S. recently, please tell me, and I'll post a link in the show notes below. But this one was done in the UK, and the UK is a whole lot closer to the German people, and they suffered much more than Americans did in the Second World War. I mean, they were being bombed directly by the Nazis on a daily basis, literally, not figuratively. And I mean, near the end of the war, the Germans were launching, rockets that could, intercontinental missiles, essentially, the V2s. They weren't very effective. In fact, they killed far fewer people than they did in their production. And it was like some 1,400 plus people were killed by V2s. And the program that produced those rockets killed 20,000 slave laborers that the Nazis just threw at the problem and killed them. Just kept shoving human lives into their program to get the rockets launched and built and launched, and then just let them die. They used them up and they let them die, literally working them to death. So anyone out there who has any sympathy for the Nazis or the white nationalists, you can kiss my shiny white ass. And it's depressing that in a modern era, 21st century, that less, half the people in Britain didn't know that 6 million Jewish people died in the Holocaust. And of course, there were another 5 million people that were killed by the Nazis outside the Jewish community. There was gay people and the trans people and the Romani, as well as numerous other ethnicities that were shoved into those camps and into those ovens. But it was the biggest chunk of one ethnicity was the Jewish folks. And the fact that the British don't know that is terrifying. And what's even worse is that in 1986, they enacted laws requiring the instruction of children about the Holocaust. When I was in school, we never got to World War II. American history is a goddamn joke. We got to the Civil War, and it was not an in-depth, nuanced look at the Civil War, even in New England. It didn't cover any of the real issues of the war. It was very shallow. But we never got to the First World War, the Second World War, and the Spanish-American War. I didn't hear about that until I was a goddamn adult. And I had a great-grandfather that fought in the damn thing. I still have some of the paperwork he got when he mustered out of the military. And I didn't know about the Spanish-American War. Our history teaching in America is a joke, a dangerous joke. But in Britain, they got closer to addressing it, but apparently that is not working, because in the 21st century, not enough people in Britain have a clear idea of what actually happened in the Holocaust. So what do we do about that? How do we make sure that kids understand that? How do we make sure that they know the role their government played in those deaths by not letting those Jewish people into Britain? And I know in an environment where CRT is considered to be a controversy, actual history, that's going to be a difficult fight for some folks. That's going to be a bitter pill to swallow. That their grandparents didn't let Jewish people escape from literal death because they were racists. That is not something they're going to want to face, but they need to, because it happened. And we all have to understand that every white person in Europe and in the Americas and in Australia have all benefited from white supremacy. And we have to address that. And if we don't, you end up with Proud Boys in the street, carrying torches and chanting, "The Jews will not replace us."